People's Republic of China to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm honored to speak as the representative of Mr. Qin Gang, State Counselor and Foreign Minister of China. China thanks Russia as President of the Security Council for this month for its initiative to convene this open debate and welcomes Foreign Minister Lavrov's presiding over this meeting. I also thank Secretary General Guterres for his briefing. I also agree with his assessment on the current challenges we are facing. The world is standing at a historic crossroads now. The humanity is facing unprecedented global challenges. Acts of hegemony and bully are causing colossal harm to the world. Bloc politics are creating huge divisions and confrontations. It has become all the more urgent and important to uphold the UN Charter. What is most needed now is for all countries to practice genuine multilateralism, strengthen unity under the banner of the United Nations, enhance the effectiveness of the global governance system, achieve common security, promote common development, and open up a common future. First, the authority of the UN Charter must be firmly safeguarded. The UN Charter is the cornerstone of the post-war international order. The principles of respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity, non-interference of internal affairs of other countries as stipulated in the Charter have become the basic norms governing modern international relations. The problems that have arisen in the world today are not because the UN Charter has become obsolete, but because its purposes and principles have not been effectively implemented. The security and well-being of present and future generations of mankind still depend on the continued promotion of the spirit of the Charter and on the preservation of the status and role of the United Nations. To safeguard the authority and effectiveness of the Charter, we should not just do it in words, but also in deeds. We must not just have others do it, but start with oneself. We must not be half-hearted and do it selectively, but do it all the time consistently. We must not have exclusive clubby circles, fabricate so-called democracy, confrontation, and authoritarian narratives, and provoke geopolitical confrontation, but advocate dialogue and cooperation, and insist on extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, and resolve disputes by peaceful means. Second, we must firmly uphold the international order underpinned by international law. The world has only one order, and that is the international order underpinned by international law. Faced with the big change and chaos in the world today, we must always be guided by the principles and purposes of the UN Charter and base ourselves on international law in handling international affairs. This is an important guarantee for upholding fairness and justice, addressing global challenges, and safeguarding the sovereignty, security, and development interests of all countries. We oppose some countries distorting the meaning of international law, imposing its own will on the international community, packaging it into the so-called rules-based international order, and wantonly violating the legitimate rights of other countries in violation of rule of law, international rule of law. We also oppose the belittling of international agreements, whether it is arbitrarily tearing them up or having double standards. There is no credibility to speak of in this regard. If a major power arbitrarily turns important treaties and agreements that bear on international peace and security into a dead letter, then not only will international law be eroded, but the world will have no peace at all. In this regard, the relevant country should earnestly reflect its action. Third, it is necessary to ensure equal participation of all countries in international affairs. The international system, with the UN at its core, carries the common expectations of the world's peoples and should serve the interests of all countries. The United Nations cannot and should not serve the interests of only some countries or even a few countries. It is unreasonable for citizens of one country to head some specialized UN agencies and international financial institutions on a long-term or even permanent basis. The big change of the world is accelerating. The multipolar world is becoming a reality. The pace of democracy in international relations must also keep up to truly reflect equality and enhance the equity and effectiveness of multilateralism. Developing countries, and African countries in particular, deserve to play a greater role in the United Nations. The right of developing countries to participation and decision-making must be ensured. We support the initiative of Secretary General Guterres to reform the international financial institutions, and we must act immediately to improve the global governance system. Fourth, unilateral sanctions that violate international law must be resisted. Unilateral sanctions indiscriminately imposed by the United States and other countries outside the Council mandate are entirely for maintaining their hegemony, technological monopoly, and ideology. Their practice has no legal basis. This stands in sharp contrast to the development and progress of the world. Unilateral sanctions are like a rampaging monster, constantly creating and aggravating humanitarian crisis, violating the basic rights of women and children, hindering the development and progress of countries, especially small and medium-sized countries, and causing immense damage to the harmony and stability of international relations. What is of greater concern is that unilateral sanctions, often in the name of upholding international law and implementing Council resolutions, have subjected the United Nations to unfounded accusations and weakened its authority for multilateralism. We once again urge the relevant countries to immediately stop unilateral sanctions and call on the international community and all countries to uphold fairness and justice and independence and jointly resist and counteract such illegal acts. Mr. President, as a permanent member of the Security Council and a responsible large country, China adheres to genuine multilateralism all the time. In complying with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and in complying with international law and basic norms governing international relations, China has the best record. President Xi Jinping's concept of building a community with a shared future for mankind represents a fundamental direction for resolving key challenges and difficulties of the world today. China will vigorously promote and implement the Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative, comprehensively promote Chinese modernization, participate in the work of the United Nations on all fronts, and make our contribution to the promotion of international solidarity and cooperation in jointly addressing challenges and in safeguarding the common values of mankind. In the face of a world with intertwined change and turmoil, China will move firmly in the right direction. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the People's Republic of China, and I now give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Mr. President, at the outset, I would like to make this clear. Multilateralism is at the very heart of the United Nations. There may be different views on multilateralism, but I hope that this open debate is not intended to divide us rather than unite us. No single member state can solve today's global challenges alone. We need a collective multilateral response.